One of the clearest manifestations of the attack on reason, though humble reason, is polylogism. In accordance with Mises, we will define polylogism as the doctrine that the logical structure of the human mind varies. There are two different types or aspects of polylogism. On the one hand, there is Marxian polylogism, and on the other hand, there is Nazi polylogism. From the Marxian point of view, the logical structure of the human mind varies depending on the social class of the human being in question. So, the logical structure of the mind of a member of the bourgeoisie would be nothing like the logical structure of the mind of a worker or a proletarian. Do you know where the word proletarian comes from? Proles means offspring in Latin. So, why were poor people called proletarians? Because all they had were their children. They were practically naked, but they had their children. In the view of adherents of Nazi polylogism, the logical structure of the human mind does not vary with one's social class, but with one's race. So, the minds of members of the Aryan race would have a certain logical structure, and it would be different from the logical structure of the minds of black people, or Asians, etc. Polylogism means many logics. Why does polylogism make no sense? I'll give you 4 reasons, and we'll consider the 4 arguments Mises offers. Reason number 1. Nowhere do polylogists, neither the scientists who supported Hitler, nor those who supported Marxism in the entire Western world, etc., nowhere do they univocally and scientifically define the concepts of social class and race which would serve to determine different mental structures. Instead, they refer to vague, nebulous concepts. This guy's bourgeois, or this guy's a millionaire. Yes, but when does a person begin to be bourgeois? When does a person stop being a worker? Reason number 2. Even if we admitted, for the sake of argument, that we could define the concepts of social class and race with perfect objectivity, no polylogist, and there are a legion of them even today, though they don't openly admit it, no polylogist ever explains how and when the mind of a human being changes. For example, when a worker, a taxi driver, saves and becomes self-employed, and he continues saving, and he ends up owning a company with 10 taxis and becoming a capitalist, at what point does he lose the spirit and mind of a member of the working class and begin to have the spirit and mind of a bourgeois entrepreneur? Or we could ask the theorists of racial polylogism, what does the mental structure of a mixed-race person consist of? For example, Boris Becker, the embodiment of the Aryan race, 2 meters tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, etc., liked a black girl. If we could only ask a Nazi, what mental structure do their children have? That of the Aryan race or that of the black race? Or do the children have no mental structure? What does the mental structure of mixed-race people consist of? And, reason number 3, please explain to me exactly what the difference is. How does the mental structure of a Jewish person differ from that of an Aryan? How does the mental structure of a capitalist and a Jewish person? Reason number 4, and this is much more unsettling still. Why were many Marxian theorists lucky enough to assimilate the mental structure and the interests of the working class if they themselves belonged to the bourgeoisie? Let's remember Mr. Karl Marx. Was Karl Marx a worker? No. You must read the life story of Mr. Marx. It's priceless. He was the typical spoiled rich kid, a privileged child. His father was a wealthy lawyer. The boy's favorite pastime was sleeping with the domestic servants and getting the maids pregnant. Why did this wealthy man, read the biographies of Marx, suddenly find himself imbued with the interests of the working class? But let's not talk about Karl Marx. Let's talk about his partner and patron, Friedrich Engels. Do you know what the profession of Friedrich Engels was? He was a textile manufacturer. Factories with thousands of exploited workers. And he was the one imbued with the spirit of the working class.
¿Me pueden ustedes explicar por qué?
Can you explain to me by what magical art the embodiment of the bourgeoisie suddenly had a proletarian mental structure?
Mental proletaria.
Now let's talk about the other polylogism.
¿Y por qué un señor cetrino y bajito?
How was it that a short, sallow man with a black moustache and Jewish features named Adolf Hitler suddenly turned out to be the embodiment of the Aryan mind? Because honestly, if he'd been a guy 2 meters tall, a Boris Becker, I might understand it a little. But Hitler looked Jewish.
Lo que parece es un judío, como la copa de un pino.
What's the explanation? I'm doing a bit of a parody, but it's not such a parody.
Parodia. Y es que, queridos alumnos,
Because, dear students, we must critique theories based on their own merits.
según sus propios méritos.
Analyze them with the greatest scientific rigor.
Tratar de depurar
And try to refine them again and again, always with the spirit of intellectual humility that accompanies correct rationalism.
y es totalmente
And it's completely senseless to point to an author's background, as Marxians do. Everything Professor Huerta de Soto says about economics is false. Why? Because he's a bourgeois capitalist, and he's not imbued with the spirit of the working class.
de la clase trabajadora. ¿Se dan ustedes
You see where the trap lies? Or, I pay no attention to anything these people say because they're Jews. If Fleming had been Jewish, what difference would it have made? The fact is, he discovered antibiotics, and I can take them, and they may save my life.
las teorías, los avances científicos?
We must judge theories and scientific advances on their own merits, without pointing to their author's background and claiming it is tainted by his or her social class or race.
La raza del interesado. En realidad,
Those who hold these misguided ideologies actually seek to immunize them against criticism,
blindarse ante
to shield them from critical, scientific reasoning by resorting to clumsy polylogist arguments.
los burdos argumentos de los polilogistas. Porque
For ultimately, the mental structure of human beings is one and only one. And there can be only one, because we can't conceive of there being any other. The logical category of yes is one, and the logical category of no is another.
pero es uniforme y
But they are uniform and universal in the minds of all human beings, whether they be black, white, blue, bourgeois or proletarian. It's true that cultural differences sometimes exist. For example, Japan. You must visit Japan. It's a lot of fun. Here in Spain, when a goal is scored, what happens in a soccer stadium? Goal! Everybody's shouting and there's a tremendous commotion, right? And during the play, there's silence. People are waiting to see what will happen. Well, in Japan, it's the other way around. People shout during the play and they're silent when a goal is scored.
silencio.
Here we dress in white to get married and in black to go to a funeral. In other cultures, it's the opposite. People dress in black to get married, and maybe that makes more sense, and in white to go to a funeral. But remember, those are cultural differences. They are not differences in the logical structure of human minds. Because, I repeat, the logical structure of all human minds is one and only one. Because, among other reasons, we can't conceive of there being any other. We can't even conceive of it. Polylogists are very dangerous. Do not get swept up by the ideologies that are out there. Ideologues always seek to attract young people because they're impetuous and want quick results, and they're naive. Now you have more than enough arguments to respond to any polylogist who approaches you.